Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today is Joe Quesada Day, so we're looking at the next issue of his Ray miniseries from the early 90s. This is issue number 5, cover dated June 1992. Talking about the cover real quick, I think the only person credited on this cover is Quesada, 1992, so I feel like he probably inked this one himself. There's no other credit, so I'm going to have to assume that. And pretty cool cover, I'll just say, because I feel it's reminiscent of... it reminded me of that scene in Star Wars when they're in the trash compactor and the walls are coming in. So maybe inspired by that. I don't know for sure. And the fact that, he did exaggerate the face and stretched it out a bit, which adds to that sense that he's being compressed. And right at the moment where the glass covering his helmet kind of cracks open. And I mean, not quite realistic because even though it's a helmet, the eye size changes with the Ray's expressions and stuff. But hey, this is comic books, so you can do that. That's one of the problems when you try to translate masked superheroes into like movies today, right? It's the fact that the masks are don't actually move with the character's face like in the comic. Now they've done stuff with CGI and stuff where they can do that a little bit, like with Spider-Man. But obviously that's something that it's really hard to translate to live action. But yeah, I like the broken glass and the shards kind of popping off the top here. I think this is a pretty effective eye-catching cover. Let's have a look inside. So I was surprised when I saw the credits here. Jack C. Harris script, Joe Quesada just doing the layouts on this one, Art Nichols doing the finished art. So, probably some rough pencils from Joe Quesada and a lot more work in the inks from Art Nichols. But I will say, if I hadn't read the credits, I don't know if I would have even noticed. It's pretty consistent with what we've seen before. So it feels like Nichols is a pretty complimentary inker for Quesada and his style. This shot kind of unfortunate, the little bit of... I guess that's what's supposed to be water on his thigh and butt here. Unfortunately, I just got to say it ends up looking a little bit like jizz on his ass. So yeah, unfortunate. So we're still squaring off against Dr. Polaris in this issue. And, what I will say as far as, the relationship between Joe Quesada and Art Nichols, the inker, and in this case, the layout artist, when it comes to something like this, laying that out and inking it to look like it consistently looked in the first few issues, not too hard with the silhouette and stuff. Sometimes though, I feel like there's just a slight lack of detail on some of the elements here. And that's where we'll notice a slight difference in aesthetic here on the cape as well. This feels a little bit more like a older 80s style inking rather than 90s style. Still pretty impressed. I like all the effects, the design effects he's doing for the Ray. Like this shot here of him getting hit and firing in that direction. There's something pretty cool here. Some weird rainbow coloring going on. So I don't know about that. But all the power emanations and the visual language that he uses to describe them, I think look pretty darn cool. And he's doing some pretty standard but interesting layouts all throughout. Again, he's probably working from a script, I would assume here. This is DC Comics, so, but always very dynamic when it comes to the action. And again, just another kind of slight bird's eye view here. He's very good at varying the angles and choosing some very fun, dynamic, interesting angles for some of his shots. And then you get something like this again, where I feel like, man, if I didn't know that Joe Quesada was just doing layouts, I would feel this was pretty much the same symbiotic artistic relationship as with the first prior 4 issues. Another good use of just negative space here. It kind of looks odd when you still have that negative space, older school printing going on, because the cape, you feel would probably look better if it cut off at the edge of the page there, but it just kind of gets cut off. Some of the same issues I've seen with when I do the Jay Lee reviews and his kind of full bleed pages being kind of stuck inside of an older kind of printing method for the pages, right? Where you always have that white border all around. Coloring wise, this is a pretty interesting page. Like it's almost monochrome, right? Not quite, but almost. And I think it works really well to kind of set the stage for the environment that they're in, which is obviously completely different from where we were before with the Ray. We've got the backstory here with Jennifer, right? This girl that he knows. Not super interested in this bit, to be honest. And the lawyer and the whole to-do with his house and stuff. That's more of a plot point. And then if I'm not mistaken, this is our character that we saw in prior issues that's supposed to basically be Joe Quesada, but his look is quite different here than what we saw before. So not quite as consistent in his depiction of this character. Don't know if that has to do with, as I said, the layouts and the different inking here, but here he's really starting. I guess this has to do with the cover, right? So there's something going on here where his helmet's being compressed, right? And he says, "This hurts, getting hard to breathe. Losing the helmet, it's only a light construct, force field collapsing on it," right? So I guess, yeah, that's what the cover is meant to represent. And there's a cool sequence I don't want to miss as we move ahead. Some more great Joe Quesada architecture here. Not quite as evocative as his usual stuff, because I do feel, again, maybe the inker simplifying stuff here. But there's always something I thought was great about Joe Quesada when he does like stones and bricks and stuff, and the texture it evokes. He was always very good at that one. And again, some more just like, it almost becomes like an abstract image, right? With all this stuff going on, you can kind of see a figure here and a figure here, but like all the debris and the power emanations and stuff, this is almost like an abstract painting, and I kind of like it. Just very, very dynamic shot here. Lots of movement. Really, really jumps off the page. Oh yeah, so this was the sequence that I thought was pretty cool. I didn't know the Ray had ever done this or could do this, but it makes sense with his power set. Dr. Polaris has pulverized some rocks, so it's like rock dust. And he says, Polaris is controlling this iron dust magnetically. If I inhale it, he'll be able to rip my lungs out. So boop, his helmet all of a sudden covers up his nose and his mouth, so he doesn't breathe any of that stuff in. Thought that was a nice little touch there. Yeah, just a lot of the subplots are pretty boring here, and Quesada does his best to, spruce it up with some interesting layouts, some panels overlapping other panels. He's already got some of that image kind of storytelling mixed into more classic, many paneled DC type storytelling here. I mean, how many panels on this page? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 panels. Pretty, but not in the typical grid kind of pattern. So it's definitely more interesting generally to read than just a regular kind of grid pattern. And again, just the Ray's dad showing up and giving him shit and trying to explain stuff to him. So it's after 5 issues, it's getting a little old. I love this close-up shot of his eyes here and the folds and stuff. I think that's really well done. Very intense kind of look there. Still drawn some very defined lips on some of the characters, which I always thought was a little weird. Kind of leftovers from his Mignola tropes that he's taken from. So on this page, they finally are able to neutralize Dr. Polaris, and what's basically mentioned is that he says, "I'm Emerson again," so he's not Dr. Polaris. For some reason, Polaris had taken over his body and he had his powers and something. Not quite sure. Like I said, not here for the story. And then another kind of clever flashback sequence where they use just grays here, which again, stark contrast to the rest of the issue and the colorful, saturated colors. So it works really well. And again, I don't remember back then, they would do these black and white sequences, but I don't remember seeing a lot of them with this extra gray tone here, which is almost more of a 80s indie comic kind of thing, right? So it's kind of fun to see it here in a DC comic. And again, it works really well to lead us into the flashback and back out, right? It's clear that that's what's going on. I think this shot of the skeleton here is pretty cool. Someone basically, when disaster befell the balloon, I volunteered to go out and see what could be done. It was then that I was exposed to a cosmic storm which endowed me with the powers of the Ray. So that's the original Ray's origins, I guess. So kind of an X-ray shot of him being hit by this cosmic storm. Another clever way that Joe Quesada is getting away with not having to draw too much, right? I talked about a few issues ago, one shot of the Ray where you could, behind him was just the trail and you can only see like his chest and shoulders. Guess he decided to do it again here, or at least in a similar fashion. Now there's a quick panel to get through, right? Artistic wise, like as an artist, this is a quick page to get through, hit your deadline. This panel here to me is very Mike Mignola. There's something in the guy's face and, not the, late 80s Mignola. Not quite the full silhouette of the cops down here, but just fading off into some hatching. There's something very Mignola about this panel to me. And then boom, we're out in space and we're getting cosmic. So I'm going to assume that next issue we're going to get more of this kind of environment, and it's going to continue tomorrow with my review of the next issue of Quasar. We're going to be pretty much out in space, pretty cosmic, and a bit of distortion going on there too, which is fun and interesting. And that's it for this issue. So there you go, guys. That is my short and sweet review today of the Ray issue number 5. If you are still watching and you're subscribed, thank you so much. I really do appreciate the support. If you're watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. Takes a quick second for you, really simple, helps out the channel, helps us grow, helps get us out there to other people, and helps us towards our goal of 500 subs, our first milestone. So everyone out there watching, thank you once again, and have an awesome day. King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KINGCOMICS.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.
Like! Subscribe!